to visit with us this beautiful Thursday evening.
Absolutely.
So before we really get into tonight's show, I want us just to pause and give a moment of thanks and admiration and cheer to our favorite cinematographer from A Flash of Beauty, Mike Ferry, who is celebrating his birthday today.
Mike, I would sing you happy birthday like Marilyn Monroe, but the Squatches are listening and maybe they'll serenade you as I'm out here in the field. But happy 29th birthday, Mike Ferry.
I thought it was 27, but I
Oh
won't.
my gosh. And he got
Yeah.
an outstanding gift. He got, what did he get, Jill? He got an amazing
He got
collectible.
he got like a pristine, almost mint condition copy of the Sasquatch file by John Green. And as it turns out, Mike's wife, her grandfather was very interested in the UFO and Sasquatch topics, and
Hmm.
he left behind many items. And his wife's grandmother came across it and was like, "Oh, you're doing Sasquatchy things. Here you are." And Mike's just like,
Yeah.
amazing. So we were actually Brett and I were actually on the phone with him this afternoon, and he's going through the book just one by one, giving us all the accounts that were in there.
Yeah.
So sounds
There's a
like it was a
great
good read.
physical property breakdown and anatomical breakdown, I believe, of Patty in there. Well, I have a copy too. Um, and there's a lot of little hidden gems inside that as far as data. If you're into Bigfoot data, that's the one to look for. And you can walk away. There's still some copies out there. It's pretty hard to find.
An oldie but a goodie.
You said it.
So
Well, as
Tobe,
you can,
I noticed you're
yeah.
outside. Where are you? Tell us what's going on.
Well, this is a local hotspot, right? Like this is one of the areas not too far. In fact, you may hear a couple of pickup trucks going down the road off of one of the old highways here. So this is not too far from my house. If you kind of followed up on Facebook, I've mentioned as such that we have some interesting handprints on the side of the house, and we've had some unusual gifts. Not too many, but there's been a couple of things over the last 9 months. But this is one of the creeks that comes down from the Olympic Peninsula, a rather well known. There's four basic creeks that come through Squim, Agnew, and Port Townsend proper, where I live. And this is one of the creeks that supposedly has Sasquatch activity. And beyond that, well, it's up to anybody's guess. But there is somebody not too far from me that reports activity, all manners of activity all year long. So we're here crossing our fingers to see what will unfold as the sun goes down. There's a couple of little bungalows here, more like Airbnb cabin type things, but for the most part, it's just you, me, and the stinging nettles, one of my favorite plants here in the Pacific Northwest.
So are you gonna do an overnight, or are you staying at the Airbnb? Are you roughing it?
Right.
What's going on?
Well, I'm literally parked. I can almost see my car here. So I'm not staying the night because I don't live that far. I live less than a couple minutes away. But I would love to be out in the woods. It's just hard to get a signal here to do these lives. Um, but maybe if, Santa comes, I can get myself some of that Starlink action and then we can go full live. Uh-oh. Am I frozen in time?
Oh no, you froze.
There you
Oh,
go.
okay.
Anyways, I was
Speaking of
saying
Starlink,
Starlink. If anybody has Starlink, then I can do some more field work.
can you show us a little bit where you are, just so we can get a
Yeah,
Pacific
you bet.
Northwest?
A little vibe action here. Well, as far as being able to find any ancillary evidence here, the creek bed's pretty rocky, but there are little potential sandy parts like this. And as you can see, there's a beautiful cedar grove up here on the bluff. And as this flows through, this is about the average height of the creek. It doesn't really go up past this point here. It mostly stays in this area since I've been here. And then about, oh, maybe 2 miles that way, which would be towards Canada, that'd be north, that will go out, drain into the Straits of Juan de Fuca. So this used to be filled with salmon. You can imagine the potential here, right? But Washington's just absolutely ruined their fishing here. So the salmon runs aren't what they used to be. But, you know, let's just talk about the potential here for nutrition for megafauna. And, it makes a lot of sense. But you really get transported back in time until you find garbage like this. This looks like somebody left out their all-purpose contact solution
There-
here, just in case. Yeah, gotta love it.
there's a lot of pollen in the air. You gotta,
There's yes,
keep your eyes
yeah,
lubricated.
yeah,
Very good.
absolutely. So you're
Very
not at
good.
home either. We're both out in the field. You actually left the state. Tell everybody where Jill and Brett are right now and why you're there.
We are in beautiful Grand Island, Nebraska for the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference taking place this weekend. Tomorrow, oh,
Oh, there we go. We got a sighting.
so
Hey, I'm dropping in. I'm a real person. I'm the guy chatting with y'all, but I just wanted to, occasionally pop in, kind of like a
There we go.
Sasquatch. Okay, we'll
okay.
see.
So we will be screening the sequel of Flash of Beauty Paranormal Bigfoot tomorrow evening. And it's going to be a double feature. And actually, well, Alan and Ron from your time with
Oh,
them on the Bigfoot Alien
a,
show.
yeah.
And they will be screening their, I've made a note, is a Bigfoot, it's the Bigfoot of Bailey, Colorado, and the Portal. They'll be screening right before us, but it's going to be fun. So we're really looking forward to it. And a lot of new faces for us here. So line up, let's see here, we have Brian Corey is going to be the MC. And I know you and Brett have done his podcast
Okay.
a couple times. Also, we'll have Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, Duke Sullivan from World Bigfoot Radio, and a handful of researchers, Jim Myers, Robert Kreider, Steve Berg, who's also an actor, Blaine and Lisa Taylor, Robin Haynes, and Christian McLeod, the cryptid guy. So
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna be a fun weekend, and we're really looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's one area I've never been. When people think of Nebraska, I don't know if they necessarily think of Sasquatch. But you don't really have to have a place like this to have Bigfoot activity. Um, Tell me, you came in on the plane. Did you see anything other than vast fields and corn, or what? Tell me about the environment.
uh, our flight to Denver, and Amy is actually, I saw her name pop up in the chat. Brett was wearing his A Flash of Beauty Bigfoot Revealed sweatshirt at PDX, and someone recognized the film. And so we struck up this conversation. And Amy, who's with us, she saw both documentaries, and she's from Massachusetts. So, it's just so cool to know that, people talking about, encounters and stuff going on in completely different areas than where we
Yeah.
are. So that was really cool. And she mentioned also, and I'm glad she brought this up. She mentioned, like, she thanked us for touching on representing the full story. But also, flying into Denver, Brett, can I talk about your phone call that you had?
Yeah.
Okay, so flying into Denver, high elevation, my ears were popping when we landed. But Brett got a message on the plane, as someone who watched the documentary that morning and was like, "Hey, I need to speak with you, at your convenience." And so Brett's like, "Okay, we're driving. We'll connect." Last night, we had the most amazing conversation for an hour with a gentleman out of Topeka, Kansas, who wanted to share with us the sighting he had when he was 10 years old in the late 70s. And my friends and family said, "Oh, it's fake. They're just trying to pull a fast one." And then he was out night fishing with his older brother, and soon they smelled it, and then the rocks started flying towards them, and
Hmm.
then this thing comes just barreling through the woods, and he talked about it's like no person could have been able to. It was just snapping trees like 6 inches around, snapping trees out of its way like it was is grass. And they took off, left all their gear there, hightailed it. And his brother, who's 10 years older, he actually had a pistol on him, started taking shots at it because it's like 20, 30 feet away. And he was like, "I saw it." He's like, "I could see it. It looked like a man. It looked more like a man than any kind of animal or a gorilla or what some people describe." And what was really interesting and what we've noticed, I'm sure what a lot of people may have noticed even in our interviews, is that recall, that detailed recall. He went into, and Dr. Adams talks about this too, how your brain, everything slows down and you really like zoom in on certain details. He went into detail about the way the color of the paint of his brother's car. It was a new car, and the way the moonlight like hit the car, and how the color looked compared to in daylight, and that
Hmm.
like really was like ingrained in him. But they took off and they came back the next day to get their fishing gear, and it had like eaten the sandwiches that were in the igloo cooler. It like ripped apart a fish basket. Of course, took all the fish. But his brother said he tried to talk to his brother about it. He said it never happened. He's like, "Don't ever talk to me about it again." And he tried to bring it up as an adult and talk to him about it. And he's
Hmm.
like, "We're not talking about it. Never happened." Unfortunately, his brother has since passed. But talk about bringing people together and being able to share. I think it was, if anything, it felt like almost like a therapy, kind of like he was able to like get this off his chest. But what was so amazing also was that he's like, "Quick," he's like, "if you have a computer nearby, I'm going to give you some information." He's giving us links to all this, like all the research he had done. I
Right.
mean, he was just as well versed, like armchair investigator, like he's been trying to make sense of this, like his whole life about what he saw and stuff. So it was pretty cool, talking to him and hearing his story. So, but to kind of circle back, Nebraska is a flat land, at least on the western side. I can say in
Oh yeah. Right. Well, yeah. Now the story you just related, was that the report that I was supposed to read, but I'm out in the field? Did you just relate that story? Okay. Okay. Well, just going back to what you said, I mean, these incidents are so, they just gnaw at you. They hound at you when you have an experience like this. You just can't let it go for the most part. At least I can't, and now you can't, and so many people on the feed can't. That it's kind of it's a hidden language that we're speaking here as far as just how hard it is to drop this nagging issue of having a sighting. So I totally get it. And yeah, I'd be curious to obviously meet these people here, but that's something that's the important thing about these conferences is that you put these pieces together so often in person. You can't put them together in these chats. And I mean, you can start adding things together and finally meeting, but this is why I still like going to conferences, because it actually, it feels as though synchronicity happens at these conferences. They're exhausting to a lot of degree because you're traveling to get there, but there's always that one conversation. You guys know what I'm talking about. We're just like, I'm so glad we went. Yeah. Hmm. Right. Reporting center. Yeah. Yeah. This just in, Jill has a new case here at the flash table.
Yeah, I have my little Morse code thing. I like
Yeah.
dee 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 dee.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, and we're because I had this presentation ready to go from last August for the cryptid conference down in Texas
Oh,
that we
that's
had to
right.
cancel last minute. Yeah. And so I was like, okay, yeah, I have something ready to go. And then I spaced it. I completely just until just the other day. I was like, oh yeah, Brett, we're doing a presentation. So we're gonna have to kind of work the kinks out on that. But you know what? Our documentaries are not traditional. They're a little bit different. So I think it's
Hmm. Now, Jill, just so you know, on my end, your audio and your video are starting to lag a bit. And I understand, I'm looking at the chat here. Apparently, there's a thunderstorm. It's freezing up. I think it's just coming from your end. It's 9 o'clock. You're getting flashes of lightning there. Just letting you know. I don't know if you need to reposition yourself or put a hunk of quartz crystal on your head. It's up to you.
freezing up.
It's not like you either.
see.
Jill's video and audio both.
Oh no, where should I go? Should I try moving? I don't want people to see our ugly
Oh, ouch. Yeah,
stuff thrown everywhere.
It could be.
yeah.
Thunderstorm going on right up, like we can hear it. So should I just keep talking?
You want me to
Moving
show,
forward.
while you're figuring that out, why don't I pan here and I'll give you a little idea of something that had just happened here. Now, this is kind of a perfect example of a visual pareidolia here. A lot of times when people are out in the woods, they see stuff, they don't take a closer look at it, and they call it one thing, but it could very well be something altogether different here. So I'm just going to pan the camera. Now you see this, what probably is a maple tree here, and if you look here, you can see the stick. Now that's pretty obvious looking single stick going up here. Jill, you're frozen again. I'll let you just figure this out here on your own, and then I will show people this single stick here on the trail. Um, check this out. So, Jill, I'm just showing here what I think is a good example of just following through with your due diligence on field work here, because you see this single branch that's laying up against this tree.
Yes.
Okay, well, the interesting thing is that that's not what that is at all. That is just a branch connected to this maple tree with another branch leaning up against it causing that optical illusion. Now,
Oh, wow.
anybody looking at that initially would say, well, there was this long branch that looked like it was piercing the tree. Well, it's not. And it takes no work on my end just to come up and take a closer look. I mean, I've already got a little bit of a, it looks like I'm in Oklahoma. This is some brushy. I'm not used to forests like this, by the way, but this is what happens in creek beds out here. But you can see the branches kind of different looking on this angle here. I think it's just kind of an interesting observation to check that out. We're just doing a little bit of field work here. Kind of weird, huh?
Yeah, that is. It totally looked. I just figured it was a stick that was.
Yeah, like piercing like a Spartan through this maple tree. And you can see plainly here, it's just a branch with a limb coming off the side of it. But I just thought I would show that. How's my signal doing? Am I holding up okay?
You're holding up. You're holding up. I like the
Okay.
narrative better that it was pierced through the tree.
Right, right.
Um,
Look what Sasquatch did. It threw it like a javelin right through
See,
there,
this
like
is how
Caitlyn Jenner. I mean, it
this
just,
is
yeah.
how rumors get started. This is a disinformation campaign in the Olympic National Forest. I do not
Yeah.
stand for this at all. Um, let's see here, but so yeah, I do have something. I was hoping to read a story that came in from Tammy
Hmm.
about some her encounters in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and she's had some additional activity happen. So she's like, "Let me update this and get it back to you." So Tammy, if you are listening, I am waiting to hear the rest of the story because it's it's good and I want to share it with everyone. But in our comment section, if you're watching the videos, do yourself a favor and read through the comments because people are sharing some really tremendous stories. And I wanted to share this one from, I'm gonna mispronounce his name, I'm sure, from John K. Sidor. He posted this 4 days ago. I think he posted it. I know he posted it earlier on one of the videos, but this is some good food for thought. He wrote, "Our three Connecticut face-to-face encounters occurred at our home in our kitchen window twice, and one appearing in the light of our campfire in a nearby 2,000-acre protected watershed property, also right near our home. After the first appearance in our kitchen window, which scared the daylights out of my sister while she washed the dishes, my father, 82nd Airborne Paratrooper, Bronze Star for bravery under enemy fire, set a trap in case it returned. When it did come back, my sister screamed again. My dad ran outside and sprayed it with the hose, which he kept turned on by the kitchen door. He thought it was neighborhood pranksters. For this, it lunged at him, and I remember him yelling at it, 'Hey, hey.' It then ran back into the woods. When he came back inside, he said whatever that was, it was huge and definitely not pranksters. This was way before anyone even knew about Bigfoot. After this second encounter, he bought a bolt action 7.62 millimeter rifle and kept it and a box of ammo by the kitchen door for quite a while. We had other incidents at our home in Connecticut, such as rock throwing, getting whistled exactly in the woods when I was alone, urination on our tent while camping in the woods, and gifting small piles of stones near our house after my mother started leaving fruit and vegetables on a stump near these woods on our property. It's interesting this happened in Connecticut, a state with a fairly well developed manufacturing and industrial base, but is still considered 60% woodlands even in 2024. So I think there were a few things that I thought it was so important to share. One, Connecticut. When I think of Connecticut, honestly, I think of the wonderful sitcom Who's the Boss because Tony and Samantha moved from like Brooklyn to their nice
Samantha,
Connecticut neighborhood.
Samantha. That's my Tony Danza.
I mean, seriously, it's like I don't think of Connecticut as a wooded wonderland. But it just
Oh
goes
my
to
gosh.
show you can have these sightings anywhere. Yeah.
I have to mention real quick that Tony Danza spoke at Bohemian Grove once. This is this is totally unrelated, but to imagine the boss in front of Moloch, it's a sidebar, but I think it's an important thing to mention. But go ahead. That was told by somebody on Joe Rogan that attended one of the meetings. I thought it was hilarious. Tony Danza in front of Moloch, but go ahead.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Okay. Sorry. And now I'm having these like Tony Danza like
Right, right,
in the robe. We'll have
right,
to we'll have to consult others on that one. That'll be a
right,
very special edition of A Flash of Beauty, the podcast, the live
right,
stream.
right. Interview.
Um, but I thought it was really interesting to hear how many times have we heard people talking about, oh, the gifting, the rocks showing up? I mean, Daryl still has rocks showing up at his house in
Uh,
Oklahoma.
I mean, we're kind of bearing the lead here with, and I mean, it may be too quick to get into this, but obviously stuff still happens long after your encounter. And, we just spoke a little bit about what happens in the case of this property we live at now, but you had something happen recently I'd love to talk about before we get off air to share with people, because I feel like it might be related to this hitchhiker effect.
Oh, our action the other night.
Well, can we get into that a little bit, or do you want to finish up your point? But I think it's a nice transition point.
Yeah, it just I guess the main point of I thought it was interesting that they were leaving things on a stump also because I
Hmm.
think at the Al Moon, how you and Daryl had your gifting stump. But it's
Altars,
like
Jill. Come on,
oh,
not
altar.
stumps.
Sorry.
Altars.
Jeez. So elevated.
Right, right,
Um
right.
uh talking to people who are like these, like what Rich Germos says. This
Yeah.
isn't rare. If you just have to be aware of where they are. One of the people I've been in contact with, who lives in Indiana, he's like, these things use the greenway at night. They're hopping through the urban area. So, they also say that there's a pretty healthy bobcat population in the Portland metro area, and I've yet to see one, but I don't doubt it, not for a minute.
Well, I mean, that's part of the reason I came down here is just, this is the green belt. This is a creek bed in between farmlands. There's a lot of irrigation coming down here, but you know, you don't need much habitat for just the primate part of Bigfoot to physically do what they need to do. So Connecticut, New York City, I've heard reports just outside of New York. I don't know New York City, but apparently if you go north, it gets pretty remote pretty quickly, right?
Hmm. Well,
Yeah.
Scott Tompkins from Bigfoot Mapping Project, when he was younger, he had what he believes was a Bigfoot encounter in they were Hudson Valley, and
Oh,
I'm not up to date on my New York geography. Um, but yeah, he and a friend were out hiking. I've totally like went blank on his story. What happened with Scott? They heard things or something was thrown at them.
Yeah, things were being thrown at them. They saw trees shaking, like big
Oh,
trees shaking
big
violently.
tree shaking violently.
mm-hmm,
Not squirrels.
He talks about it in his interview.
Okay.
YouTube.
It's on if
mm-hmm.
go back into our Scott Tompkins interview on our page and he talks about it. But
Right.
yeah, and I think Whitehall, New York, they have a pretty big conference, Bigfoot conference too.
Old Whitehall.
Good old Whitehall.
Well, I don't know anything about the East Coast. I'm going to leave it to you guys. You're 3 hours ahead of me, so technically, I guess you're on the East Coast, at least in my mind. But I want to go back to this here. So I get a text from you guys 2 days ago. Now, my first question to you, was it a full moon when this happened?
Yeah, the full moon in the pink moon in Scorpio, I believe, it peaked on was it Monday or Tuesday night?
Mhm.
I think it was Tuesday.
Yeah.
Tuesday night. Yeah,
Okay.
that's when this all happened, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
So basically, it's funny because when
Not everyone's laughing, but go ahead.
when things happen around the house, and what was it? A couple weeks ago, I woke up in the middle of the night. I look over and there's a red glowing. It looked like a red glowing ball over Brett's side of the bed, and I'm looking at it, and as I'm looking at it, it starts to kind of like vibrate and start zigzagging back and forth.
I
And
didn't
we have
hear
one
this
of
story.
those, huh?
I
Oh,
didn't
we
hear this
we
story.
haven't talked about this, but
Well,
we have one of these projection alarm clocks.
oh,
So it projects the clock up the time up on
oh,
the wall or
that's
the
cool.
ceiling.
That's cool.
And I'm like, well, I've never seen it do that before. And then I looked up and I'm like, wait a minute, the time is being projected up here. What was I watching taking place here? And of course, as soon as I looked back, it was gone. But I watched it long enough for my eyes to adjust and watch it and try to figure out what was going on. But I just want to say, I did not wake Brett up because had I woken him up, I would have, why did you wake me up? Blah, blah, blah. It was nothing. Go back to bed. Whenever something happens in the house or where I'm like, I see this, I see that, I hear this, I hear that. It's like, well, I'm sleeping, blah, blah, blah. So about 2:30 a.m., I'm woken up. It's like, Jill, something was playing the drum. I'm like, I'm like, okay, well, let him play the drum. I'm going back to bed. It's like,
So was it any drum in particular?
it was the drum we actually featured. It was made feral by Aaron. It was the drum
Hmm,
I showed with the Sasquatch face up with the pineal gland. It's kind of in
hmm,
the corner of our bedroom where I
hmm.
do all my kind of spiritual light
So the
work
drum
type
from last
stuff.
week's live that we did the opening, invocation with, and the final, that drum with the
Yeah,
strange
it
brow
hangs on the
logo. Yeah.
wall right over my desk.
Hmm. Yeah.
And so he was like, something was playing the drum. I'm like, okay. Um, And in the morning, I was like, we'll deal with it in the morning. And he confirmed, he was, what are we going to do? Like, light some candles? And like, I was like, it can wait till morning. No one's going anywhere.
Right. Right. Right.
Um, and so, yeah, he's like, this was exactly what the sound was. It was tapping. I was like, okay, it happens.
You don't know what
The
to make of
spirit
it.
world's all around us. So nothing phases me anymore.
Mm.
But what was interesting is Brett also caught. He's looking at our security cameras, and in our garage, there. What time did that happen? The orb.
About 10:30.
Around 10:30. Now Brett is one of these people. Like he will see. Like it's like, oh, look at my orb footage, and he's pretty critical of that because he has a photography background, so he understands how dust can refract and reflect light and whatnot. um, but this was very different, and even I looked at it, I was like, oh, not dust. You saw it.
Mhm.
It wasn't just a do 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 do. It was very like a deliberate just.
Right. And now, did the light turn on too? Because it appeared as though the light was messed with in the garage. Is that part of what was captured?
The light had we gone out in the garage and then it was just later the light turned off by itself. Brett's in
Yeah.
the background, that's why I keep looking over there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's on a timer. So the
Mm.
timer light had gone off. So we
Oh,
had been in
gotcha.
there
Okay.
maybe
So
15,
that was
20
a
minutes.
nothing burger. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Well,
So
I think that's fascinating. The fact that you were playing a drum less than a week earlier. Now, the one thing that Aaron and I did talk about too is that once in a while the hide on the drum will cool and heat up, and it will expand the
mhm.
tension of the sinew tissue and the. Well, Arlo, you can chime in too. and it will make a snapping kind of sound, but this was different.
This was different, and I know what you're talking about
Yeah.
because sometimes, like, it's such a better noise when you stick it by the fire and let it heat
Yeah.
up.
Right. Right. Right.
Um, but no, like the temperature had been constant. There was nothing that
Mm.
would have
Yeah.
caused anything. It's kind of like the time when we had it displayed downstairs, and I don't remember what we were talking about. We're talking about something Sasquatch related, and the drum just on its own started rolling across across the little
Mm.
display table. We're like, oh,
Well,
hmm.
so people know that that drum was made um, with a Sasquatch hair infused into the water when we soaked the hide. This was hair that was taken from the knee impressions from the Al Moon lab, made by Aaron, painted by me with Indian ink. But the hide has that, you know, Mel Scahan would tell you best when you put biologicals in the realm of humans, you're asking for stuff to happen. And so this may be a consequence of it. And it lets me know that that hair is, interesting. I don't think it was just the intent behind it.
No, and I mean, it wouldn't be the first time things have followed us home.
Hmm.
Whether it's been like when we've been in the woods with you and like where you and Daryl were doing your
Right,
work,
right.
or I mean, even if I'm at the grocery store, sometimes I'll get home and I'm like, something came
Hmm.
with me.
Right,
so
right, right, right.
so I mean, it's not unheard of, and it's not that
Mm.
too out of the ordinary.
Right.
The
Well,
paranormal is normal.
I will let you know that a couple weeks ago, and we kind of played this off. There was a black basketball that was shoved into the holly brush. It's a holly tree we have in the backyard, and I passed by that holly tree, for the last 9 months, off and on to grab the landscaping trailer that I have, and I've never seen it before. I don't know what to think, but once in a while, you just play these things off because, again, they're not something you can tell your neighbor about unless they're into this. It's just for you. It's very personal. But in this case, it sounds like you guys had one hell of a throwdown because it wasn't just one thing, right? It was several things all at once.
Yeah, but I don't think it. Wow, it is starting to get a little stormy outside. So if you lose me, that's why. I don't think it was anything too. I mean, it wasn't like the bed was shaking or apparitions were standing at the foot of our bed, like the little girl from The Ring with the hair in front of her face or anything like that. I mean,
Hmm.
was it Brett? Was it just more alarming?
Yeah,
He was alarmed,
yeah,
folks. He was.
I got goosebumps from head to toe.
I could tell that Brett was a little alarmed when he sent it to me. He's like, "We
Yeah.
got ghost." And I was just like, "Oh, I could feel the
Everybody,
emotion in that text, brother."
everybody loves the tub power stance, by the way.
Oh, here we go. And
People.
I'm gonna play the flute here so I can call him in. This is for all you apers out. Here we go.
It's frozen like fish.
I love it. Well, I've got a
Ah,
show and tell here. Should we do a little show and tell?
let's do it.
Okay. Well, God loved nature for making a tripod happen. I had a camera rig here and it fell apart on me right before I was ready to set up. So we're going to count our blessings here and just pray to the tech gods that everything's okay. So, I brought some usual stuff I have when I put it in the back of the truck, and just in case something happens, as far as grabbing physical evidence is one of the things I still like to do. Some people don't do it. Some people actually, they'll see an interesting impression and they'll kick it out of the way, and I get why they do it. I've done it on one occasion, but for me, it's still tough to do. I want to take the plaster impression home with me of evidence, or the hair, and then maybe I'll get rid of it. I just don't publicize the area. But uh, in all, you know, like I said, I was out with what apparently was some seasoned Bigfooters this year in the redwoods, and they have never used hydrocal. They only knew about plaster. And the big difference between hydrocal and plaster is a world of difference. Now, this looks like Pablo Escobar is gonna have a good night here. But baby, let me tell you, this is nothing but hydrocal. And so for 30 bucks, not 3,500, for $30, you can have some fine hydrocal. And the tensile strength is what's gonna save your bacon here, right? Hydrocal has a quick setting time. It heats up. It turns to a type of ceramic. It's very dense, and you can do it even in a creek bed. Like you can sit there and sift it in still water and get yourself a nice track in the water. And I wish I had time. Maybe someday we'll cast a track on air, and we'll go for that. But don't buy plaster. Just go to like a builder supply place or a ceramic store, and you can get hydrocal white in a 50-pound bag for like 30 bucks, right? Easy to use. Just make it into the consistency of like uh, a milkshake that's been sitting in the sun a little bit. Not like frosting or anything like that.
What
Um,
should it taste like?
let me tell you, it's some of the best in the world, baby. If you find something and you want to keep track of it, you can get those little construction flags at Home Depot or whatever, and they're little metal flags with red ribbon on them, or you can just get some of that safety ribbon. But sometimes I just take a golf tag and I'll stick it in the dirt, someplace like this, a little too brushy. But these you can put in your pocket, and if you're in a sandy place like this, you could even probably go to the top of these and spray paint them orange or something like that, so you could find your area quicker. And then, of course, you're going to be wanting to mix up your plaster, right? And so this is just a rubber feed bucket from the Tractor Supply store. You can basically stick it anywhere. I mean, you can shove it in your pack pretty easy. And you can stick a lot of water in here. There's always water in the mountains. If you have a camelback, that's another way to do it. And so that's a way to mix up stuff. A lot of this stuff is actually available at your neighborhood Harbor Freight. These are a 5-piece eye loop set for like $2.99. Everything there is under $5. And so, for like the knee impressions, this is something we could have used, right? And it gets you some fine detail. If you want to
Mm.
lean back in there, you could probably even hook it up to your iPhone to magnify things. Something like this you could keep in your kit. Of
Hey,
course,
Toad,
yeah.
how long does it like for an average cast? I mean, what we're talking average, what 18 inches by 7 inches or whatever. How long does it take for that to dry? How long should people let that cook?
Okay. Yeah. So
Cook.
hydrocal bonds in less than an hour. You can pull it in less than an hour. Plaster, if you do it wrong, especially, it can take all night and it may never set. Hydrocal, it's really hard to make a mistake with. Plaster, it's really easy too. So it's just worth the effort to track it down. You can order it on Amazon. Shipping's going to kill you, so you're going to pay $70 instead of 35. So try to find a local carrier. It's the way to go. But yeah, just the consistency of like a melted milkshake and practice. Like this is the perfect place to look for a deer impression or a boot print or even some more strange impressions, which I'll talk about here in a second. Before I do, though, interaction's one of those things here. And so I want to welcome people to the Taylor communication technique. Now, Scott Taylor of BFRO fame, also a leading Boeing engineer and proponent of the Scrabble letter method. So if you followed up on any of our story, we use the Scott Taylor protocol to do communication. So what am I talking about here? Well, I'm talking about using Scrabble letters or your form of spelling out something and leaving it in a remote location where only you know that you've left these letters here for asking a questions, putting a statement out. It could be open-ended, it could be specific. In my case, I said thank you for the gifts, and in the end, I got welcome. Now, phonetically, it's more of an interesting story, but these are really actually kind of hard to find. Scrabble is actually a really difficult. It used to be easy to find at Goodwill, find an old thing of Scrabble, but I've seen these letters going for 50 cents a piece, like at fancy little antique stores now, because people are using them to spell out the name of their business or, making hipster nose rings. Probably make a killer nose ring. And So yeah, Scrabble letters. And then, if you want to get freaky, um, you can use some mirrors here. You know, go 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 crazy or go home. Now, you could get handprints, fingerprints on a mirror like this, perhaps. Hang it up in a tree. This one's just from the dollar store. Hang it in a branch. Put it in a Christmas sock for someone you love. But they didn't like the mirrors in Cottage Grove. They'd all get broken. They'd
Doesn't
all
Rich
get.
hasn't Rich said the same? Like mirrors would be flipped upside down and stuff.
I don't know if but that makes sense. Some people claim that they have success with using mirrors. Maybe the younger ones like them, but in our case, they were all broken. So what I started to do is I put them facing one another like this to make what's called, I think it's called a psychomantian doorway, to see if something would come through. Supposedly in poltergeist activity or haunted houses, mirrors that are facing one another create these doorways. So let me put them between my head here and see if I get anything that happens live on air. Nothing's happened so far in my case with the psychomantium technique. But the other thing that I love, and this is kind of feels like a nothing burger, is these are just little. Um, they look like hair doodads, right? Like from the 80s. And maybe they could be,
They look
but
like mini
these
pool
are
noodles.
these are just little wireframe um, hangers, and so you can form them to do pretty much anything. Hold your canteen up. I use them all the time out in the field. It's not Sasquatch related particularly, but it is adjacent to that. And then, of course, if you're going to be in the field here, just something to keep your butt dry, because if you have a wet butt in the woods, you're not happy, they're not happy. Keep your butt dry. So the last thing is that, sometimes you find strange stuff and you don't necessarily know what to do. Now, when you see something interesting, Jill, in the woods, just cast it. If you have the material with you, it's good practice. So about 2 months ago, I think getting on to 2 months ago, there was a report of a 9 foot tall demon. This is what the witness said: a 9 foot tall black demon around 10:30 at night up the road. It crossed one of the main rivers here and went up the side of the mountain. They said it was covered in a black wet towel or cloak, but they did say wet towel around it. It had long arms past its knees and it fled up to the top of the mountain. So I went there to check things out. I spent all day there. I ended up following in the sand some of these Vibram. They look like knockoff Vibram five-toed sandals walking along the riverbank. They're a size 13, which is pretty big, but they were definitely human. They had tread on them. And so what I found was that someone had bent down in the sand and they'd drawn something in this remote area. And what they had drawn, I really had no idea what this was because it was like laying like this when I found it from my angle. So I just saw like an arrow or a triangle and a circle and two lines. But when you put it like this and you put that on Google Images, or you
Hmm.
ask somebody like Sonia Zohar or Ira Wolfmussen that knows something about um, images like this. This is a pretty well-known images in the circle of people that are looking at goddesses. So this is the goddess Tanit, and Tanit is kind of like she's a hybrid kind of. Some people would say a demon god, right? A goddess, and I don't know if she's part dog or part cat, but she's definitely a hybrid of some kind. And she wears a black cloak around, right? So this is where it gets interesting. We actually stayed the evening there, and over the lake that night, we saw this giant glowing ball of light about less than 2,000 feet off the deck. And we watched it as the fog bank came in and it swallowed up this interesting light. Well, Tana is also known as the evening star. So it's pretty interesting that someone said that they saw a hybrid looking something with a black cloak of some kind over this demon. And then we ended up seeing this miraculous evening star, which is hard not to call a UFO. So, it's, I don't know what to do with stories like this. Like, obviously it seems like where there's smoke, there's fire a little bit. I don't know. This is probably something that you want to call Ira and talk to her about a case like this, but it's a strange area up here in the Olympic Peninsula. And, I guess be careful what you look for, be careful what you wish for.
This is all happening kind of in your backyard, correct?
Yeah. So 20 minutes from from where we are right now.
Lucky you.
I know, right?
Keep your window shut.
And I did shoot a video of this here. It's on lockdown right now because I was actually investigating on behalf of one of the groups out here in the Olympics. And I just didn't want to show too much of the location because I think they're still looking at it, but maybe someday I will. And
Hmm.
anyway, wild stuff.
Well, that's a lot more exciting than the
Well, I
drum
don't
playing
know. I mean,
itself.
maybe it's all kind of related. Like, we're getting into some strange territory. The other day, you asked me about, underground connections regarded to Canada and the Olympic Peninsula. And, we recorded some interesting stuff out here in the Olympic Peninsula that is tantamount to sounding like a submarine pinging sound. And this is part of Sasquatch lore is this submarine ping sound, electronic sounds, but the sonar pinging sound is the stuff of legends to Bigfooters. So I'd be curious if anybody in the chat has heard this sound before or recorded it because this sound went on for an hour and 30 minutes. And I don't think it was a bird because of that fact. And plus, it was around 1 in the morning. Um, so I'm just a little bit stumped about what that could be.
I think, let me throw this idea out. This is like kind of like back in the day when the sitcoms would do the crossover episodes, or basically any like Dick Wolf show, like Law and Order SVU meets Chicago, blah blah blah, like one of those shows. But I bring I bring the drum up
Yes,
to this location,
yes.
and I will play it, and we will
Oh,
see if any more things are drawn in the sand.
okay. And then I'll be standing there on my
Just
pad with my mirrors between my head, and I can put a pool noodle through my man bun. It'll
yes.
be quite the scene. Actually, people have played drums out in this area. In particular, they played bolero. And obviously, that has an interesting drum beat, the song Bolero from the movie 10. And there's been some pretty amazing results. The place is so terrifying where we caught this sonar, not to me, but to general people in this area. They will never go back to this particular. I hear this time and time again. Like, you went to where? You stayed the night where? And I'm like, it's beautiful. Like, you're overlooking the Straits of Juan de Fuca, but some people get so freaked out by the mystery, just the hearing something that is unresolved is too much for them. And that's just not me. And so, I don't know. Maybe I'll stay here for a little bit and just wait and see.
Well, me, Brett, and Michael have to come up this summer and
Yes.
check it out. Um,
Well, yeah, you'll definitely be out here this fall. And I guess since we're getting to the 54 mark here, of course, this fall we're having the Olympic Strange Days. You can go to olympicstrangedays.com. We're having a after party for free for everybody from 3 to 6 at the Hamma Hamma Oyster Saloon in Hoodsport or Hamma Hamma, Washington on the Hood Canal. Check that out as well. I'll announce that soon. But if you want to go, it's a sold out event, and every week I'm dropping a clue, right? And so this week's clue is cliff. 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 You'll understand more later. And you have to watch the other 2 episodes now to get the other clues. So I'm not going to give them to you every week. You thought I was going to be nice and do that. I'm not. I'm an a-hole. You got to go back and listen to the other 2 episodes to get your clue every week. So pay attention, folks, because there will be a quiz.
And the quiz, the payoff. What is the payoff again?
Well, the
What's
payoff is you get 2 tickets to a sold out event. They'll be hidden somewhere out here in the Olympic Peninsula, and they're going to be in a hot spot. And there's going to be levels to this. You'll start off kind of in one area, then you'll migrate to another. There'll be 3 stages to this. But at the end, if you qualify and you get to it before anybody else, and let me know because I'll announce it. You'll tell me that you found the tickets. Um, that's that. But no matter what, you're going to have a good time going to these locations, and it's beautiful out here. So I'll let you know more here.
very cool? Hey, before we wrap up, I see that we had some donations that I missed because my multitasking is really not on point. Brett, who made donations?
Renee and
Thank you, Renee.
let's see here. That was $10. And let's see, Caleb. I just want to make sure I get the name right. 313. Sorry, I'm looking for it in the chat.
Is it Caleb or is it Cabal?
Cabal 313. Yeah.
And Cabal 313.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We appreciate your support. So, on that note, before we wrap up, just some quick housekeeping. So, the Nebraska Bigfoot Conference tomorrow and Saturday. Then we have kind of a dry spell through May. In June 15th, we have something really special planned up in Castlegar, British Columbia. We're doing
Oi.
Friday.
14th.
Oh, is it the 14th?
I think it's 14th.
I don't. I think it's the 15th.
Okay.
The Friday of the teens in June, I believe it's the 15th, we're doing a double feature in Castlegar, British Columbia.
Friday's 14th.
Oh, doggone it. Ugh, hate it when he's right. The 14th. Oh, thank you, John Fair's Gold Panning School for that donation. Thank you.
He's going to try and make it to Castlegar.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so that's going to be fun. We're going to try to rally the troops and bring together some Bigfooters from that area to show up. And then, I think we can start talking about this now because we're making that transition for new events. July 19th through the 21st, Sasquatch Summerfest in Oak Ridge, Oregon. And that's going to be a lot of fun. We'll be screening both movies.
And if you come to that, I know some hot spots. That's my old stomping grounds. And I will give you directions to the hellhole. If you don't know what the hellhole is, if Highway 19, there's your first clue. I will send you to the hellhole. Climb at your own risk. You're not going to see anything like it anywhere else, and you have to show up to the event in order to find out.
Very cool. And then I know we have a lot of interviews lined up. We've had some scheduling problems too, just because of schedule conflicts and illness and whatnot. But we are planning and doing our best to get you new interviews. A new one drops tomorrow. It's about a sea squatch. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Potential sea squatch.
A potential sea squatch.
We don't know.
No, it's a full blown sea squatch situation.
Well, yeah, it's like a surf and turf because it's on land, but it's also in the ocean. So
now I can't picture it without like tartar sauce coming out of its.
yeah. That would be an awesome Red Lobster commercial, like Sasquatch surf and turf.
It's
like
the sea squatch portion.
All
Ordered the sea squatch portion. That's too many fish. That's too many chips.
They just come to the table with a net and just
Right.
dump stuff on there.
Right.
I should work in advertising.
You kind of
Any
do.
other closing thoughts? Do you have anything you need
No.
to say?
Thanks
Okay.
everyone for tuning in.
Everyone, thank you for tuning in. If you want to share your encounter with us, go ahead and email us at info@bigfootdoc.com, and
Mhm.
we will put it in the queue. Read it during the show.
Awesome.
That's all I
Hey,
got.
be safe out there, guys. Good to talk to everyone tonight, and I will see you in the trees.
Okay. Be safe.
Bye.
Okay, everybody. Thanks for showing up, and we will see you next week, if not sooner. Actually, you know what? Maybe we'll do some lives from the conference. We'll play it by ear. I don't know what the Wi-Fi situation is, but yeah, we'll get creative. Alrighty. Have a good night. Bye.